Welcome to Cardinal Perspectives, a series featuring in-depth conversations with alumni, students, faculty, staff, and the extended family and community of the Catholic University of America. My name is Kirsten Evans, Associate Vice President at the Catholic University of America. As the proud member of a military family, I'm delighted to introduce this episode of Cardinal Perspectives featuring Harvey Seegers, Maura Wenzel, Scott Flesch, and Mary Card Mina. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Harvey Seegers is Senior Associate Dean and Professor of Practice at the Bush School of Business. He is a decorated officer of the U.S. Marine Corps and held significant leadership responsibilities in the South Pacific, Capitol Hill, and the Pentagon. In addition to his 24 years in the Marine Corps, he built an impressive business career leading General Electric's e-commerce division and launching HomeDepot.com. He holds degrees from the University of Virginia, Harvard Business School, and Catholic University. Retired Lieutenant Maura Wenzel is Assistant Clinical Professor at the Conway School of Nursing. She served in the U.S. Navy Nurse Corps for 8 years, 5 on active duty and 3 in the reserves, and specializes in emergency nursing. Professor Wenzel now brings that hands-on experience to the classroom, preparing the next generation of nurses. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Villanova and both her Master's of Science and her Doctorate of Nursing practice from the Catholic University. Retired Major Scott Flesch, who served more than 25 years in the U.S. Army as a soldier and civilian, is a member at Miller-Chevier and was adjunct lecturer at the Columbus School of Law for more than 20 years. A double Cardinal and former president of the Alumni Association Board of Directors, Major Flesch continued a distinguished Army career as Army Chief Trial Attorney for the U.S. Army. A double Cardinal and former president of the Alumni Association Board of Directors, Major Flesch concluded a distinguished career as Army Chief Trial Attorney for the U.S. Army, overseeing major government contract litigation. Today, he represents government contractors in complex disputes, protests, counseling, and investigations, continuing his commitment to serve through law and education. This conversation is hosted by Alumni Association President and retired Lieutenant Colonel Mary Card Mina, who served 22 years as an Army Judge Advocate, including assignments as Assistant Legal Advisor within the Department of Defense's Office of Military Commissions and Staff Judge Advocate for the Army Material Command Legal Center. Mary is a double Cardinal, earning both her Juris Doctor and her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the Catholic University of America. To all the active duty and retired military personnel listening, thank you for your service and dedication.
So I was really struck today when I drove onto campus and I saw the welcome sign that says, "Welcome to the Catholic University of America, founded 1887 in service to church and nation." And that's really why we're here today for this Cardinal conversation. Today's guests, all of you are part of the Catholic University of America as distinguished alums, as faculty members, and have served church and nation. Thank you each for your service. And when combined, we're looking at well over probably 70 years of service, which is pretty amazing. In today's conversation, we're going to focus on 3 themes. The first is service to nation. The second is service to church, faith, and a combination of the two. And the third is service to the Catholic University of America as faculty members and leaders, and also how CUA serves veterans and current ROTC students. So let's jump in and let's get started with service to nation. So I'd like for each of you to share a bit about your career, your military background, and what first draw you to serve. Maura, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy, and so I grew up moving every 3-4 years. And then my older brother went to the Merchant Marine Academy and joined the Navy. And then I was profoundly affected by September 11th. It happened when I was 17 years old. I was a junior in high school. And I noticed everyone who was running towards the shambles was the first responders and nurses and doctors. And so I thought, I want to be part of that. I went to my dad and I was like, I want to do something for my country. And my dad was like, you're in luck. There's a scholarship called ROTC. And so then I served in the Navy. I was active duty for 5 years. I did active reserves for 2 years after that, and then one more year of inactivated reserves. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you again very much for your service. And I have to say, go Army. But today we are all we are all sisters and brothers in service. Thank you. Harvey, how about you?
Well, I was on active duty for 12 years in the reserves as well. I was an infantry officer and retired as a lieutenant colonel. I would like to say that I was driven by some overwhelming patriotic duty to join the Marine Corps, but the truth of the matter was, I really liked their uniforms, and I wanted a job outside of college that let me see the world.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate in that regard. I had several years in the South Pacific and then came back to the States and I had tours of duty in the White House and finally the Pentagon.
Great, thank you. So we have a lot in common. I definitely joined the military as well because of my love of travel. And we also have in common, my spouse is a former infantry officer. So thank you very much for your service. And Scott.
Sure. I grew up in Long Island, New York. Nobody in my immediate family was in the military. I did have an uncle and grandfathers that had served, and I was just drawn to it because of a sense of purpose. I had always been involved or interested in the rule of law and politics and democracy, and I just felt that pull towards the military. I applied for an Army ROTC scholarship while in high school, Ward Melville High School, and was awarded it and chose Catholic because one, obviously, sense of belonging, the church, but also Washington D.C. I was a politics major, and Catholic was aligned with Georgetown at the time for Army ROTC, and it wasn't as convenient as it is today for the cadets here. We had to go to Georgetown for all of our classes and our PT sessions, but it definitely built my character while I was here. I enjoyed the 4 years going back and forth between Catholic and Georgetown. I then did an educational delay to go to law school at the Columbus School of Law here at Catholic University and entered the Army JAG Corps in 1998, served on active duty and in the reserves in numerous positions and retired as a major. The last job I had on active duty was as a trial attorney doing contract litigation on behalf of the Army and various DoD entities, and that translated into a civilian job. I went from BDUs one day to a suit and tie the next, and rose through the ranks in the Army Civilian Corps, and finished my Army JAG Corps career 2 years ago and joined a law firm downtown, Miller and Chevalier, as a member. And I'm still doing government contract litigation. The Army trained me in this very specific area of the law, which I still love. And I loved my Army experience, the sense of purpose it gave me. And I think that the right place for me was here at Catholic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. And Scott and I go way back. We're both double Cardinals, proud double Cardinals, and also joined the Army JAG Corps. So it's just wonderful to have you all here and for this conversation. So, staying on our theme of service to the nation, can you each share how your military service has influenced your work in your respective fields, business, law, and nursing? And this time, Scott, we'll start with you in terms of how has the military service influenced your work in the law?
I think it gave me a sense of purpose, character, and ethics. And there are times, not often, but even in the law, you come across those individuals that just don't have those foundational pillars that I think you want to find society in dealing with people and treating them as humans and understanding ethics and morals, and certainly in the military. That was extremely important when you're dealing with operational law, just war issues, rules of engagement. That is always within the background of what's the right thing to do, not what you can do, but what's the right choice. And it's not just operational law, even in government contracts. It's you come across choices, right? And as those pillars of do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your guide, that I think provide that foundational ethical background that makes us make the right choices under the right circumstances.
Mhm. Yeah. wonderful. And that is inscribed on the law school building. So that's a wonderful quote to share. All right, Harvey, can you talk about your experience and how your military service has influenced your work in business?
Yeah, I would say that the two things that I learned most from my military service was to have very high standards with everything that you do, and closely related to that, have patience with different type of learners. I've now been in academia for, it's hard to believe, 11 years now. And I always make sure that I'm completely prepared for every time I walk into the classroom. And I think the students respond to that. They know that you've done your homework, and as a consequence, they'll do their homework. And, every class has a different mixture of learners. Some are very quick learners, or some are very slow learners. And you, as a teacher, have to exercise patience with all kinds. And that served me well in the military, and it certainly has served me well as a teacher.
Mhm. Yeah, you've touched on so many amazing points, and definitely the military teaches patience for sure. Lots of hurry up and wait. And I loved your ideas about being prepared as well as respecting and understanding differences, whether it's learning styles or just in general. So thank you for that. And Maura, over to you in terms of nursing. How has your military service influenced your work in nursing?
I mean, I think very similarly to what's already been said. For me, the military gave me a sense of purpose and a sense of value, and it very much went hand in hand with being able to serve others as a nurse. And I think that the values of the military for honor, courage, and commitment for the Navy values really is that's how I approached nursing. And I think that for me, I was very fortunate to be a Navy nurse when I was a brand new baby nurse. And so it was very much like went hand in hand with how I was approaching myself as a naval officer as well as being a brand new graduate nurse. And so I think like that sense of purpose, that sense of value that you matter. And you matter when you're in the military, and you know that your country needs you, and you know that you're the piece of the puzzle that's so important. So I think that kind of also carries through with nursing, because every nurse is so important to the patient that they're taking care of. And I think that had a profound impact on me. So the values that I learned in ROTC were very easily translatable to my work as a nurse.
And I think a common theme amongst all of us is the sense of purpose in giving to others,
Yeah,
whether it's
I agree.
mentoring students or the military subordinates. It's always giving back and looking to pass on your knowledge and lessons learned, both good and bad,
Hmm.
to the future.
Yeah,
And
I agree
that
with that.
it's teaching, it's military, it's just even being a lawyer for me, or a nurse for you.
Hmm.
Um, it's always about the next person up, right?
Hmm.
Leaders eat last.
Right.
That's a good principle I think we all follow.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and Maura, when you mentioned sort of the importance of each person and the person in front of you, I also thought about the military and teamwork and how
Hmm.
much of teamwork goes into the military.
Yeah.
I think many people sometimes think of the military as a very hierarchical, rank driven society,
Yeah.
but it really is about the team.
It's also the best friends you'll ever make because you just understand what you're in the middle of. Some of my friends who we were early Navy nurses together, and my friends on deployment, like those are the best friends because they understand you're at a different level where you're giving of yourself to serve your country. I just think it's a camaraderie that's unlike any other.
Absolutely. I think we've touched on this a little bit, but let's move into our second theme, which is how our experience in the military combined with faith. I'd like to talk about your approach to leadership, teaching, or mentoring students here at Catholic, and thus how you also served our church. So, Harvey, if you could talk a little bit about that, your military combined with your faith, and how that shaped your leadership, teaching, and mentoring.
Well, I think I'm going to answer that with a story. When I was a second lieutenant stationed in the Philippines going through jungle warfare training, I was in charge of a 210 Marine unit. It came to be a Sunday, and it dawned on me that I probably had more than a handful of Catholics who were in my unit, and we weren't near any churches. And so I got on the radio and I called a Navy chaplain that I knew back on base and asked him to fly out and hold mass in the jungle for how many Catholics there were. So he got on a helicopter, he flew out to the jungle, set up an altar on a rock in the jungle, and I had put word out to my entire unit that we were going to have mass at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And out of the 210 people in my unit, over 100 people showed up for mass in the jungle. And from that day forward, I've always thought about making sure that we make time for our students to practice our faith.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier that in the business school building, Maloney Hall,
Yeah.
we have mass at 12:05 every single day of the week. And by the way, the 12:05 is because classes get out at 12 o'clock. So they have 5 minutes to get to the chapel.
Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely a beautiful memory and a beautiful story. I can really relate to it too. I remember so many of the masses that our Catholic priest chaplain said when deployed,
Yeah.
and especially how significant those were. So thank you for sharing that memory. Maura, can you talk about your experience in the military and how that influence combined with your faith
Yeah.
led to your leadership?
Absolutely. So I think Scott already touched on the military and the emphasis on ethics and respect and courage. And for me, I feel it. I found that as a military officer, I had a Navy chaplain who was in the hospital that I was working in when I was a new nurse, and it linked spirituality and nursing for me in a way that I guess I hadn't really thought of when I was an undergrad, in serving not just the body of the patient, but also the service to the spirit and the mind of the patient. And so seeing that in practice and learning it was okay if a patient was stressed out, and for me to say, like, would you like me to pray with you? And then I just started being like, oh, I can pray for them. It doesn't even matter if I, pray with them. I can pray for them when I'm leaving. And so I think that I had a very good Navy chaplain when I was a new nurse, and I think it kind of helped me walk that bridge across of being able to really be a good Catholic while still being a good officer at the same time. I really dug in deeply with my faith, honestly, when I was in grad school here at Catholic University. And I had come from being stationed in Italy, going to a lot of masses in Italian. And the homilies here when I was in grad school were so phenomenal. I just felt like you said, the opportunity for students to be able to go to mass and to really fill their spiritual cup is something that is so unique to Catholic University and such a gift for our students. And so I think, like, very similar, the military's core commitment and values often go hand in hand with, how we approach our faith. So, yeah.
Mm, Thank you, Maura. And absolutely, I agree. I think our experience here at Catholic, it is definitely a gift.
It's awesome. Yeah.
For sure. All right, Scott, over to you.
Yeah, I have a different perspective, very similar, but I'm going to turn it to my profession, the military aspect of it, but also the practice of law. I'm often struck every day of how the core principles of being a Catholic and also a military officer, and those principles that underpin Catholicism, treating everyone equally
Yeah.
with compassion, regardless if they're rich, impoverished, they're Muslim, they're Jewish, it just doesn't matter. You treat humans with human dignity.
Yeah.
That percolates a lot also into the rules of professional ethics that the military taught me as a young baby lawyer, as well as just being a lawyer and being licensed in various states and having your ethical requirements. The jobs I had as a military JAG were amazing. I was defending soldiers accused of crime. I prosecuted soldiers accused of crimes, and it never. Some of the facts were definitely disturbing, but the individual that was either being prosecuted or defended, it was so important to remember your core uh, Catholic teachings of treating everybody with respect,
Yeah.
ensuring that their rights are protected, and not judging anybody
Yeah.
prematurely. and ensure that they also felt like you not had their back, but you're going to give them your best, right? And you're going to apply the rules and really act, not just talk a good game about treating people equally, regardless of their background. Because soldiers, especially in the army, that's my perspective, are coming from all walks of life.
Right.
Some have, very troubled paths. Some may even have gang affiliation when they were in inner cities. And then you have the exact opposite. You have kids that just want to do something different. And you bring all that together into one community, into the military, and you have to apply their background, but your core principles and making sure that they're treated equally, appropriately, and that they understand that you are there to assist them. And again, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God at the same time, right? So, intersecting the military principles, the legal principles, as well as my Catholic upbringing, I really think there's an intersection in ethics and morals, even in the practice of law.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, the Catholic like the Catholic social doctrine that we really apply through a lot of our nursing coursework here at Catholic, I almost feel like cutting my teeth as a new nurse in the military. It is a perfect scenario. Everyone is treated with equality, like man or woman, you get paid the same across the board. Like it's almost like you know what you can count on, and every person's treated with dignity, and they have that they don't say a beloved child of God. We know that, but that's almost like the perception of how you look at every single person, because like every single nurse, regardless of where they came from, every corpsman, they were a person who had answered the call to serve their country. And I think it's very beautiful. And I love that you pulled in that Catholic social teaching of everyone having dignity, because I really do feel that that was impressed upon me in the military as well.
Great. Thank you all very much for sharing. I think we've kind of covered this, but I just wanted to circle back around and sort of ask the question in this way. So, and this is sort of connecting both service to nation and service to church. Catholic University emphasizes service, integrity, and formation. How do those values align with the ethos of the military community you were a part of? So, Maura, we'll start with you this time.
I think I've been very fortunate. Catholic University has compiled such wonderful colleagues for me to work with. And I would argue, even though some of them did serve, I serve with two veterans, a former Navy nurse and a former Army nurse in the undergraduate faculty. But I think the overarching theme in my colleagues is that they all have that same ethos. I'll say honor, courage, and commitment, because I was in the Navy, but the people that Catholic University hires and surrounds their undergraduates with are just like really top-notch people. And I love my colleagues, and we just the values that these other faculty members embody, really, for me, it very much aligns with the ethos of the military community that I was part of. It almost takes it to another level, I will say, because a little bit is shaken out, because those who pursue teaching and being a faculty member here are obviously going to take their faith very seriously, regardless if they're Catholic or a Christian. They take their faith very seriously, and they live out those values in how they teach the students. So it's very much in alignment.
Great, thank you. Harvey, what are your thoughts on this question?
One of the things that always impressed me about the military, and I mean the military across all services, not just the Marine Corps, was how well the organizations developed character. And I see the very same thing here at Catholic University.
Yeah.
I think the faculty and the staff do a wonderful job in emphasizing how important character formation is with our young
Yeah.
students, and setting a very good example for what character means. I remember very early on in the Marine Corps, I had a drill sergeant who explained to me and to the entire unit that character is the word that explains how you behave when nobody's watching. And indeed, not only did I see that in the Marine Corps, but I see it here, where students and faculty go out of their way to make sure they're giving the very best to the students, both in the undergraduate level and at the graduate level.
Absolutely. That was my experience as well. Scott.
So each one of us join a military on a voluntary basis. So I don't that defines service, right? I
Mhm.
mean, especially there was a time when service was not voluntary, and will there be a time in the future that's not sure? But everybody that's at Catholic, especially the cadets, you have to applaud them today because they are choosing to serve on a
Mhm.
voluntary basis. And that's becoming a rare commodity these days, I
Yeah.
think, in society. So, hats off to the cadets, the midshipmen, and the airmen, and future airmen and soldiers and midshipmen and sailors, Catholic, because they didn't have to do this. And sure, they may have a scholarship, they may be joining ROTC, but they still had to say yes.
Right.
And the dedication and to country and to some higher purpose certainly has to be applauded. And each
Mhm.
one of us did that, and it's going to carry on. And I hope that the university continues to, and I believe it will, support the RTC programs at amongst the various services. Integrity, you're right. You do the right thing when somebody's not watching. That to be an officer or just an enlisted soldier or airman, um, you have to always do the right thing, and that was ingrained in me not only going through my Catholic upbringings, um, but through Officer Basic School and all the courses I took through the Army JAG Corps was do the right thing and stand for a purpose, and also have the discipline to call yourself out. I
Yeah.
mean, we learn from our own mistakes, and to identify and at least admit them is being human. And sharing those lessons learned with others is critically important, not only improve their lives but your own. And formation, I think it's self evident that um, everything that we learned here at the university helped form the people that we are, both in life, professionally, but also personally. Um, and that ethos and the values that we all talked about today just uh, didn't start didn't start by themselves. There was no immaculate development of an ethos.
Right.
It's by our professors, our parents, our friends, our family, our
Right.
coworkers that
Right.
help shape who we are and our experiences. And it really brought us here today, um, and hopefully teaches some lessons and it gives some hopefully useful advice to the future to enable and better the lives of those others.
Mhm. Yeah. So, Scott, two things that I thought of when you were speaking. You talked about sort of lessons learned, and I immediately thought of recently was celebrating his golden Cardinal year, Coach Fisher. He gave a great talk recently. It's not win or lose, it's win and learn. And so I love that. I thought of that immediately when you talked about lessons. And you offered a great segue into ROTC. So I thought now we'd turn our conversation to our third theme, service to Catholic as faculty members and alumni leaders, and how CUA serves veterans and current ROTC students. So, with that, let's talk about the fact that you all have a special connection to Catholic University as both alumni and faculty. In your view, how does Catholic University support military connected students and where could it continue to grow? Scott, let's start with you.
It's just simply supporting them and enabling them to succeed. Whether it's continuing to allow them to take their classes on the university campus, giving them access to transportation, when they walk on campus wearing a uniform, thank them for their service. They may not know how to answer, honestly, because that is a very personal thing. But that's okay, whatever the answer is. If they say thank you back or thanks for the appreciation or just nod, there's no right answer when somebody thanks you for your service. It's receiving the acknowledgement that they recognize you are, again, volunteering in some way to a higher cause in uniform. Because, service life is not the easiest thing. I was blessed with it. I had a phenomenal time personally and professionally. I made lifelong friends, but it is not the easiest thing at 6 a.m. to be sweating, rolling in grass, on a cool morning, right?
Right.
And they all volunteered for that. It is not the easiest thing to be rolling in sawdust after airborne school voluntarily. And these are things that, not everybody in society chooses to take on. And so our cadets need to be applauded for, again, their service and promise and dedication to the future of giving of themselves. And so any way that we can support them and engage them, um, and then tell them that what they're doing is meaningful and purposeful, we should take that on.
Great, thank you. Harvey.
Well, I would say I agree with everything that Scott said. And, I don't have that much contact. In fact, I have no contact with the military students that are on campus. And so I can't really render opinion on how we might be able to engage with them better. But I certainly would welcome the opportunity to get more involved in the future. But in the past, I just haven't.
Great, thank you. And Maura.
I think right now the support that we give, we usually, if they let us know when they have like a field training or when they have to be out doing, a lot of times the students will let us know. I'll be like, hey, Dr. Wenzel, if I'm late to class, it's because I'm coming from the field or something. And that, I think in general, we do a very good job as faculty supporting them. One thing I think we could do better, in my opinion, so take it for what you will, but I think perhaps if we have dedicated faculty advisors for the ROTC students so that they don't get lost, because some faculty advisors are awesome and they did ROTC and they know what they're going through, but some don't know what it's like to be rolling around picking ticks off of your legs. And so I think that's a place, an opportunity for growth that we could have to give them a spot. I also get a lot of frequent students, they end up in my office and they just want to talk about what was it like being a Navy nurse? And they just want to hear that. And I think if we have more opportunities for them to just be able to talk about it, and also potentially just information sessions to see people who are not currently in ROTC, but potentially may want to join the service.
And some additional practical advice, and I'm sure it's the young students who are not going to be listening to this podcast. It's probably the Golden Cardinals, maybe. But how you can help them actually succeed? They have a hard enough job getting up early after a night at college, let alone going to classes after physical training or their own. Don't give them pressure to stay out late. If they tell you, no, I have class, support them.
Yes.
Help facilitate their ability to go to sleep.
Yes.
These are not easy jobs mixing college and being a cadet. So cut off the peer pressure a little bit and just support them and encourage them to do what they need to do. And
Yes.
It's hard enough.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
That's a great practical thought for sure. I just wanted to share too on this question. I think for me, when I was wearing the uniform, I was an adjunct faculty member at the law school. And the one thing that the Catholic or Columbus School of Law did for me was they told me if I was rushing from class, I was stationed at Fort Belvoir, if I was rushing from my day job to get to class, that I should feel free to wear my uniform. And I really appreciated that. Just that thought of that practical, I'm rushing in my uniform to here, and if I don't have time to change, or it was so appreciated. I never wore my uniform in class, but I really just appreciated that thought and that kindness of supporting my need to wear the uniform if necessary. All right, so a slightly different spin on this question. In what ways do you think the alumni community can engage with and support ROTC students and alums who are currently serving or have served? Maura, over to you.
I do think perhaps if we, just with alumni engagement, if we could have events at homecoming or something where it's a special former military students, you could just get together. I don't know. My husband's always like, why don't they just do a tailgate? I don't know if that's appropriate, but I do think just some way where they feel like they can connect with their former classmates who have spread to the four winds, and just have maybe like a military appreciation or something in a way, a night at the Nationals, a way that keeps Cardinals who have served supported. And then maybe just like even when we talk about alumni supporting ROTC students, this would probably be a stretch, but even just like mentorship opportunities, if they're willing to come and speak to students or something like that, I think that might be helpful.
Mhm. Great. So I'm going to turn to Scott. And one of the great things, the Alumni Association, of which Scott is a prior president,
Oh, nice.
does have some grassroots, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
ways that the Veterans Committee is working to support those that are currently ROTC students or those who have currently served or are serving. Scott, do you want to share some thoughts?
Sure, and I think the tailgate idea is wonderful.
Okay.
We
Comes
start
from my
doing.
husband. So.
Well, then kudos to him, and he has to come now.
Yeah, he will. He's always like, if there's a tailgate, I'll be there.
And Mary's not giving herself credit. She started a few initiatives, especially at the pregame tent party. We've had a veterans table the last couple of years, but we need to do more. We always need to do more, but we also need more involvement.
Yeah.
We should probably get a big old green tent that's camouflaged that people can see a million miles away to help, basically have a central point as folks walk in, and some sort of thank you, meaningful appreciation for their service. But what can the everyday person do that outside homecoming, right? It's actually helping identify those. If you know a Catholic graduate or student that is a veteran or currently serving, it's getting their name into, say, the Veterans Committee for the alumni, so that they can be recognized. We've done care packages. I remember somebody that Mary and I went to college with, David Shableski. He was a National Guardsman in New Jersey. Deployed numerous times, and this last time he was in the Middle East, and going back and forth because he was a lieutenant colonel, helping supervise and mentor his own folks. We not only got him personally a care package, but his unit a care package. But we didn't just put the cookies and the candy in there. Catholic University flag was in there.
Oh, nice.
And so we have wonderful pictures, literally in the Military Operations Center. Catholic University's flag is there, and that's symbolic. But it just shows that we are trying to give back on a worldwide basis, to those that are answered the call. But it can't stop with one example. You've got to continue to do that and identify folks. And Mary, you could tell them about the liaison's office here on campus about maybe how they can raise the need to celebrate a Catholic alum that's deployed. What should they do? Who should they contact?
So Kevin Riley is the new director of military and veteran support. And he has just started his role here, and he is very engaged and active in supporting not only students, but also veterans. I've talked with him at length about different ideas. The list of names of veterans that we met at Cardinal Weekend, for example, I've connected those individuals to Kevin. They'll be doing some informal mentoring. Actually, 3 of the alums that I met were all nurses.
Oh,
And
really?
so there's a very strong tradition of military and nursing. So yes, definitely Kevin Riley is a great point of contact.
And there is a big need. There is one thing that we have identified that I will personally call upon the alumni to help support and the university to support in a meaningful manner. And it is the Veterans Memorial. And you may not know where it is because it's actually hidden behind bushes in front of McMahon Hall.
Oh,
And it is in desperate need of a renovation.
yeah.
And there's such an opportunity to make it something that recognizes all of the veterans at Catholic and where they served, when they served, and leaving growth for the future for the echelons and generations of Catholic alums that will serve. There is a need to organize a campaign, and then obviously there's going to be a need to donate. We have preliminary plans in place to start that effort. We've identified the likely cost of that project, and it just needs to get off the ground in a meaningful way. And then people need to start giving, and alumni need to step up. And if you're listening to this podcast and you want to know more about it, please reach out to the Alumni Association or the Advancements Office so you can give back and really give a Veteran Memorial a meaningful spot and something that is more than a stone behind some bushes. Because honestly, to me, that's a travesty. It doesn't recognize the service and dedication that so many Catholic alums have given over the years, including their lives.
Thank you, Scott. And also, two other things, depending on when you're listening to this Veterans Day edition, Cardinal Perspectives conversation, we have supported for many years Wreaths Across America, and we will be again in 6 cities, and alumni can join in that ceremony. Volunteer information will be coming out. That's December 13th of this year. We also, speaking of wreaths, recently held our first wreath laying ceremony. President Kilpatrick, Mrs. Kilpatrick, and 2 ROTC cadets laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery, again reinforcing Catholics' commitment to both service to church and nation. So, as Scott mentioned, there certainly are things that we are doing, but there's always a lot more that we could do, and we certainly need your help. So, as this is a Veterans Day edition, I just wanted to turn and wish you all a happy Veterans Day. And as we close, kind of give you an example or give you time to just say either your favorite story as a veteran or any closing comments that you would like to make. And Maura, we'll start with you.
Dang, I knew you were going to say that. I think probably one of my favorite stories for being in the military, for serving, was when I got back from deployment. If I have to be honest, like up until I had deployed, I had been, acting as a nurse in the Navy, taking care of, our service members and their family members and those who were retired. But it wasn't until I actually deployed and then came back that I had such a profound sense of pride of having served my country. And I think that my deployment changed how I looked not only at my service to my country, it changed how I looked at nursing in general. And it just made me really proud that I had, joined the Navy as a nurse. So I don't have like one moment, but I would say just my absolute pride in having served, my pride in my country, and my delight at teaching here at Catholic University.
Awesome. Thank you. And happy Veterans Day.
Thank you so
early.
much. Same to you.
Harvey.
Mary, thanks for asking the question because I do have a favorite story, and it's one I've been telling in the classroom for the last 10 years. So, I'm stationed with the 6th Fleet, and we are coming off shore leave in Hong Kong. And we all get aboard ship, and when you're traveling as a fleet unit, all the ships, to include the submarines and the planes, leave port in formation. And so we're a few miles out of the Hong Kong harbor, and I'm down in the officers' mess having lunch. And lo and behold, the man overboard alarm sounds. And so now not only does the ship that I'm on have to stop, the entire 6th Fleet has to stop in the Pacific Ocean outside the Hong Kong harbor. And shortly after we stopped, the onboard loudspeaker announced, "Lieutenant Seegers, come to the captain's quarters." So I make my way up the ship and I go to the captain's quarters, and standing at the front door of the captain's quarters is my radio man, and he's soaking wet. And underneath his left arm is a basketball. And what do I come to find out? That my radio man, Lance Corporal Posse, who was born and raised on American Samoa and was a cliff diver, was up on the flight deck playing basketball.
Gosh.
Somebody took a shot with a bad rebound. It went off the flight deck, and Lance Corporal Posse didn't miss a beat. He ran to the side of the ship and did a swan dive into the Hong Kong harbor to retrieve the basketball. And when I asked him, why did he do that? He said, "Lieutenant, it was the last basketball aboard the ship."
Gosh. That's a good story.
That is,
Oh my goodness.
that is great. Thank you very much for sharing that. And you have to tell the basketball team that story if you haven't already. And I'm sure I can think of like Patrick Dwyer, Haley Jones, and some other of our prolific Seaway basketball players will love that story. Thank you. Scott.
That's hard to top.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. As a university, we're instilled with certain values. And on this Veterans Day, you can talk a good game, you can say you appreciate and express gratitude, but we do more than lip service. We are graduates of the Catholic University of America. Act on your hopes, your intentions, and your appreciation. Do more than just pay lip service. Service to your nation is something that is critically important to our survival and to democracy. It is who we are. It's ingrained in your soul, and you've got to do more than just talk about it.
Thank you. And Harvey, happy Veterans Day to you.
Thank you.
Scott, happy Veterans Day to you
And
as
you as
well.
well, Lieutenant Colonel Mary Card retired.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think I would like to close with, and we've touched on this a little bit, but just to talk about our family members because they also serve, and especially on Veterans Day, I think of them.
Yeah.
One of my son's memories, and he still talks about it, was when he was given a military child award at my retirement. And it was important to me that he received that award. So a special thanks and a happy Veterans Day to all of the military children that are listening,
Yeah.
all of the military spouses that have sacrificed their career to follow their loved ones, that have served as both mother and father through deployments, and all of the roles and all of the things. So I am grateful for my family that supported my military career. And I think so many of my memories and great stories are wrapped up with them because I would
Yeah.
not have been able to have those experiences but for them. So, again, a huge happy Veterans Day to all. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. And this concludes our Veterans Day edition of Cardinal Perspectives.